Welcome on back, everybody, to the All Aussie Rules Footy Podcast. This is episode number 36. We've made it to round 16 of the 2024 AFL season, and this will be previewing all the action coming up this weekend in the AFL. As always, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how your team's going down in the comments below. Also, as I said, like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out all my other social medias. As you can see down at the bottom of the screen, we have Twitter /X, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. This recording goes out on YouTube and Spotify. Also, don't forget to check out my other YouTube videos. There was another one that went out 2 days ago, which was a little ladder predictor for the end of the year. We also did mid-season reviews, just been and gone for every single club in the AFL. So go check out all that content, plenty to see. Without any further ado, though, let's jump in to football. Couple stories breaking this week in the football world. Dangerfield avoided a suspension, obviously got rubbed out for a week, took it to the tribunal and got off scot-free. I don't have much to say about it. It is what it is. Big news. Ashcroft returns for the Lions. A massive in. So that's great news for him. Other news, there's 9 games. All teams have finished their buys. 9 games for the rest of the season. No Thursday footy still, which is the most disappointing thing, because right now it is 7:30pm on Thursday night for me. So a game would be just starting if we had Thursday night footy. So AFL, get your act together. Give me Thursday night football, please. Please and thanks. But as there's 9 games, let's just jump straight into them because there's extra content and we want to try and get through this video without making it too long. So first game of the round. Just give me a second while I bring her up. There we go. We got Brisbane hosting Melbourne at the Gabba on Friday night. Big game, this one. We'll have a look at the teams. As I said, it is Thursday night when I'm recording this, so teams have been released. So Brisbane have Joyce coming in, as well as I mentioned, Ashcroft, which there are plenty of big ins this weekend across the league. I don't think there's any more exciting ins than the return of Will Ashcroft, so that's exciting times. Out for Brisbane goes Jack Payne, who's injured, and Shadaya Brain, who is omitted. For the Demons, they have also a big in. Jake Lever is returning, as is Tajwa Woden and Andy Monez Wakefield, who will be making his debut. So good luck to him. Out goes Salem, injured, so that's a big out for them. Also getting omitted is Kynan Brown and Blake Howes. So that's the lineups for the first game of the weekend. Brisbane versus the Demons. Brisbane sitting 10th, Melbourne 9th. Both having very different seasons. Melbourne obviously started the season well, sort of petering out a little bit. Whereas Brisbane, they started slowly, but they're really getting it going now and looking like, as most people are expecting them to be, a finals team based on what we're seeing at the moment. Brisbane are going in as 30-point favourites. It is at the Gabba. They are the better form team, so no real surprise there. They did meet in round 5 at the MCG, which Brisbane won by 22 points. They controlled the game for most of it. Never really looked like losing this one. I think they were out by 40 points at three-quarter time. Both teams kind of struggled at converting their opportunities. They got inside 50 and then just couldn't turn it into shots at goal. But yeah, Brisbane were the better team in that one, when at that time Brisbane weren't in the best form and Melbourne were cruising along. I think the next week even, next couple of weeks Melbourne were looking good after this one. So it was a blip at the time, but it's kind of escalated into how their seasons are playing out, I guess. Melbourne actually have a decent record at the Gabba. They've won 2 of their last 4 at the Lions since 2018, so they shouldn't have any big qualms about going to the Gabba. They've played it well previously, one of the better teams, to be honest, at it. over the last 5 or so years. Seeing outside of this year, it's been a real fortress for Brisbane. Brisbane's form, obviously really good at the moment. They've only had one loss in the last 8 matches. They also had a draw in there. The loss was to Hawthorn in Melbourne, and they obviously had the draw with Adelaide. Whereas Melbourne are struggling, as we've kind of hinted on. They've only got 2 wins from their last 5 matches, and they were against St Kilda and Kangaroos, who are both down towards the bottom ends of the ladder at the moment. So not too much to write home about over the last month for the Demons. They're really struggling to score of late. It was shown again on the weekend against Kangaroos. They're just not scoring much at all over the last 5-6 weeks. So that's going to be an issue again, because Brisbane's defence has been really good all year. So I just don't see how Melbourne find a way to kick a winning score in this based on what we've seen over the last 5 weeks. Brisbane likely to control the ball out of stoppages most of the day, and therefore they should also probably dominate the territory battle. The way Melbourne win this is by forcing turnovers and transitioning it. That's how they play their best football, and that is really their only way, because I think Brisbane are going to dominate the middle. They're going to get it out of the middle. They're probably going to get it inside 50. Jake Lever coming in is obviously a big in for them. He's very good at intercepting and forcing teams to turn it over. So I think that's a big play for them, but they're going to be relying on that and then turning those intercepts into scoring opportunities at the other end is going to be crucial for them. But if the Lions can look after the ball, limit their turnovers, it's going to be very hard for Melbourne to win this one, in my opinion. That's game 1. On to Saturday football. First up, worst thing about being 9 games and 9 games back and no Thursday football. There's a lot of overlapping games this weekend, and this is one of them. We got North Melbourne versus the Bulldogs. This will be at Marvel Stadium on Saturday afternoon. We'll have a look at the teams. For North Melbourne, in comes Cullen Dawson. Out goes George Wardlaw, who's injured. So that's a big out for them. And Luke Davies-Yanaki is playing his 100th AFL game, so congratulations to him. He's obviously having a very stellar season. He's had his name in the news this week, just about people talking about whether he's in All-Australian contention or not. For the Bulldogs, couple big ins, especially in their forward line. They've got Aaron Norton and Sam Darcy coming back. Also coming into the lineup is Oscar Baker. Out is going Baku Kamis, Caleb Daniel, and Anthony Scott, who are all omitted. So a couple big ins in the forward line for the Bulldogs, which you'd have to think will give them plenty of attacking power down there. Interestingly, Marcus Bontempelli are currently named at full forward. North Melbourne sitting 18th on the ladder. The Bulldogs 11th. Dogs go into this 36 points favourites. Surprising that it's potentially not more, but I guess we'll see what happens there. The last time they met was round 14 last year. The Bulldogs only won it by 21 points. The Kangaroos haven't beaten the Bulldogs since 2019, so the Doggies have won their last 5 matchups against the Roos. And over the last 4 of those, the Dogs have averaged 130 points per game. So certainly have been attacking well against the Kangaroos over the last couple of years. Kangaroos this year defensively have been conceding 111 points a game. So if anyone's going to score massive against them, it is probably the Bulldogs. Obviously, the Kangaroos' last 3 weeks have been a big improvement. They beat West Coast over in the West. They nearly beat Collingwood after leading by 9 goals against them. And then even last week, they came flying from nowhere, 5 goals behind. and nearly stole it, just fell less than a kick short against the Demons. So they're certainly showing better form of late. Dogs' form is okay. It's been, similar over the last couple of years, really. Very inconsistent. Their best is really, really good. Their worst is not great. But if they turn up, they shouldn't have any issues in this one. The scoring is probably going to be the biggest issue for North. How will they stop the Bulldogs scoring? Bulldogs, one of the best offensive teams in the AFL. North Melbourne, their worst defensive team. Suggests it's going to be very hard to restrict the Bulldogs from getting out of range on the scoreboard. You'd think the Bulldogs should be able to get to 120 without too much trouble in this match, and you'd suggest that it's probably going to be hard for North Melbourne to kick that sort of score. Obviously, they did go close. They got 118 2 weeks ago against Collingwood, but I just don't know if they will be able to score enough to stick with the Doggies in this one. The Roos clearance game has really improved over the last 3 weeks or so, 4 weeks maybe. So this could be a really good battle in the midfield. Bulldogs are a team that can be really good in clearances, and they kind of match up well when the opposition's a good clearance team. They were really good at clearances against Fremantle a couple of weeks ago. They only lost it by 3, which doesn't sound great, but Freo are by far the best clearance team in the competition. So to stick with them there suggests that Bulldogs are probably a better clearance team than their numbers suggest. So I think the battle in the middle could be where this game's won and lost, for Kangaroos at least. If they are to win this, they really probably need to dominate the clearance game. But they also need to then not turn it over, because Bulldogs are very good at causing turnovers and not turning it over themselves. You take out a couple games where they're really bad, like the Essendon one especially. The Bulldogs tend to control the turnover game most of the time. Could be a shootout. North Melbourne are a very accurate team, so when they go forward, they do kick goals. So if they start kicking them, it could turn into a shootout. We'll see what happens in this one. Also on Saturday afternoon at the exact same starting time, I think. Yep, exact same starting time, which annoys me even more. Why can't we have them at least a little bit off? But anyway, Sydney versus Fremantle at the SCG, Saturday afternoon. A look at the teams. Sydney go in unchanged, as they do most weeks. They've had a very consistent team this year, which they are absolutely loving. For Fremantle, in comes Joshua Draper and Brandon Walker. Out goes Alex Pearce, the captain. He's out for an extended period. I think he broke his arm, maybe. So he'll be missing for a little bit. And also Carl Warner is omitted. That's about the excitement in the teams. Sydney, obviously number 1 ranked team in the AFL right now in most categories, and also sitting first on the ladder. Fremantle 5th on the ladder. As good a chance as anyone, I guess, to beat Sydney, and Sydney is Fremantle, but we'll see what happens. Swans go in as 28-point favourites, as they pretty much do every week. They met only 6 weeks ago in round 10 at Optus Stadium. Sydney won it by 48 points, but Freo really shot themselves in the foot that day by having some very poor kicking in front of goal. And there were other factors that affected Fremantle's game that day, so I wouldn't suggest that they weren't good enough to go with Sydney, that's for sure. They've only met at the SCG once since COVID times, and the Dockers won that by 17 points. So once again, they shouldn't have too many issues with the fact that they're going all the way across the country to Sydney for this one. Sydney haven't lost since round 3, so their season is obviously flying. Fremantle have either been really good or really bad most of the season. Their best a few weeks ago against Melbourne. Their worst 2 weeks ago against the Bulldogs. So I want to see a little bit more of their best, but we'll see what happens here. They are the top two defensive teams going against each other here, so I wouldn't expect a high-scoring shootout game. It's probably going to be a hard, tight contest throughout, and it'll probably come down to whoever's taking their opportunities, especially late, but throughout the game. They're not that dissimilar in game style all round. Obviously, they both are very good defensively. Sydney's a better offensive team, obviously, but across the board, the number one clearance team is the Dockers. Sydney's number two. Sydney have really turned that around in the last few weeks, upping their game, especially in the centre clearances. So both teams kind of look to win the ball, get ground ball gets to win the ball, but play different style once getting the ball, I guess. Fremantle are typically a slower team, slower moving ball movement team. They look after the ball, they control the uncontested footy, and they try and create opportunities through that by working the team around and creating chances that way. Whereas Sydney are much more likely to take a risky kick that will break the game open, or they run and gun it through the middle, which they tend to do. They've got very fast players off the half-back line through the middle that run and carry and handball and get the ball forward. So the two teams are different in their ball movement style, but in terms of numbers, clearance-wise, very similar. Defensively, very similar. Even contested footy, uncontested footy, that sort of stuff is kind of similar as well. So we'll see how it plays out. But yeah, it'll be an interesting game. I think Fremantle will probably win the clearance game because they are the best at it. But whether they can turn that into good scoring opportunities, we will have to wait and see, because not many teams are scoring a good score against Sydney, which isn't a surprise. They are the number one team in the AFL. The next game is a Saturday evening on the Gold Coast. We have Gold Coast Suns hosting the Collingwood Magpies at, I was going to call it Metricon. It's not Metricon. It's People First Stadium up on the Gold Coast. Have a look at the teams. There's some big changes happening here. For Gold Coast, they have Ben King and Nick Holman coming in, outgoing Jake Rogers, and he's omitted, and Brandon Ellis is injured. For Collingwood, this is where the big changes are happening. In come Oleg Markov, Scott Pendlebury, Brody Myercheck, Jordan De Goey, and Joe Richards. So 5 big ins there. Out goes Charlie Dean, Finlay McRae, Reef McInnes, and Chu Giaff, all omitted, as well as Lockie Schultz is out with illness. So some big changes there for Collingwood. Obviously, the 3 big names coming in with Pendlebury, Myercheck, De Goey. It's the way Collingwood's next month, they're hoping, will be. Players coming back in from injury without losing anyone else to injury will be what they're trying to achieve over the next 3 or 4 weeks. Gold Coast sitting 12th on the ladder. Collingwood 4th on the ladder. Collingwood going into this 3-point favourites at the moment. Expected to be a very tight game. We'll see what happens there. As has been mentioned by me many times, by everybody in football media many times, Gold Coast haven't lost at home yet this year. Will this be their first one? Who knows? But arguably their toughest matchup at home this year. They did play Geelong in a home game up in the Northern Territory, but Geelong's form isn't great. They did play Essendon up on the Gold Coast as well. Arguably could be as tough as the Collingwood matchup, but we'll see. I think Collingwood's game style probably suits playing on the Gold Coast better than the Bombers, in my opinion. We'll see how that plays out, though. The numbers of Gold Coast at home, though, is unbelievable compared to what they are on the road. Collingwood have won the last 3 games against the Gold Coast Suns. 2 of them have been on the Gold Coast, including a 78-point win over them last year at pretty much this exact same time. Pretty much played this game every year against each other. Suns have won 3 of their last 4 matches, so they're flying along. No, not flying along, sorry. They've lost 3 of their last 4. Those 3 were all away games, as we've mentioned many times. Collingwood, however, are flying, sort of. They've only lost 1 game in the last 11. There has been 2 draws in that, but still, not too many issues for them. Obviously, their last game before the bye was not their most outstanding performance against North Melbourne, but they've had the week off. We'll see how they come back from that. Massive game for the Suns, in my opinion. If they lose this one, then it's going to be hard for them to make finals, in my opinion. It's almost a must-win if they want to play finals. Looking at where this game's won or lost, the Suns really struggle to convert forward moves into shots. They're very good at getting the ball forward, getting the ball into their 50, but they're not good at converting it into shots and good shots at goal. So I think that's going to be hard for them, because Collingwood defensively are very good at stopping teams from creating opportunities, I guess. They do defend well, though, so we'll see how that plays at the other end, because Collingwood forward efficiency is really, really good. They don't dominate field position, but they do, when they go forward, look very good and create plenty of chances, whereas Gold Coast can defend pretty well. So that might be an interesting part of the game. The Suns are going to have to convert their opportunities. That's basically what it's going to come down to, I think, in this one. Both teams bring plenty of tackle pressure, plenty of pressure across the field. So I would expect to see a very fast, hard attacking game that probably has lots of turnovers. Both teams are very good at creating turnovers and turning turnovers, especially Collingwood, into opportunities at goal. So I think we'll see a high pressure game that has plenty of loose balls, plenty of turnovers, and probably very fast paced. Also, I kind of forgot to mention, but this will be Isaac Quayner's 100th game of AFL football, so good luck to him in that one. Next up, we move to the Saturday night games. First of those, they're both probably starting at the same time. Actually, maybe they're not. I don't know. No, they would be. They definitely are. So Adelaide versus GWS over at Adelaide Oval on Saturday night. We'll have a look at the teams. For Adelaide, in comes Taylor Walker. They're bringing Riley O'Brien back, thank goodness, because why the hell did they drop him? That was a terrible decision in my mind. I don't know what they were thinking. But they stuck with it an extra week as well. So anyway, also in is Elliot Himmelberg. Outgoing James Bolle, Kieran Strawn and Harry Schoenberg all omitted. For the Giants, Harry Perryman, Caniglio and Isaac Cumming all coming in. Out goes James Peatling, Ryan Angwin and Xavier O'Halloran omitted. So still no Sam Taylor back, but they still have plenty of talent in that back line to the Giants. So I don't think it should hurt them too much not having Sam Taylor back just yet. Adelaide sitting 15th on the ladder, GWS 6th. The Giants will be going into this as 3-point favourites. They've won their last 4 matchups between these two teams, have the Giants. 3 of those were at Adelaide Oval, so they surely don't have any issues going over to play Adelaide at Adelaide. Also, the Crows have lost their last 3 matches. Ever since they won by 99 points over Adelaide, it's just been downhill for them since then, with including a loss to Richmond, which might go down as one of the worst losses of the year. Yeah, I don't know. Giants have only won 3 of their last 9, so their form certainly isn't great either, but certainly a lot better than Adelaide's, in my opinion. Giants are a much better offensive team, whereas Adelaide are a very solid defensive team, but just don't manage to put scores on the board. Both teams really bad at clearances around, not just centre clearance, stoppage clearances as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. They've both got very good contested players in there, but they both just really struggle with the clearance game. Isaac Rankin, I think, could be really big in this game. He won't play full midfield time, but he will definitely go in there at times, and he could break the game open, which might give him a chance, to be honest. We'll see. Both teams also struggle with the inside 50 differential and winning the territory battle. They tend to both give up a lot of field position plenty of times, where Adelaide aren't great at causing turnovers and turning that bad field position into quick scores, whereas GWS at least are pretty good at tackle pressure and causing turnovers. So I think just based on that, GWS should win this game. They should be the better team at when Adelaide do have control of the ball. They should be better at forcing a turnover and turning that into success in the other direction. The other Saturday night game is Geelong Essendon at the MCG. This will be Saturday night, as I said. Big game for both teams. Looking at the teams for the game, for Geelong, we have Lawson Humphreys coming in. It will be his debut. Also coming in is Shannon Neal and Mitch Nevitt for Geelong. Out going Tom Hawkins injured, so he's out for 6 to 8 weeks. Oliver Henry also injured, so 2 tall forwards out, and Oisin Mullen is omitted. For the Bombers, in comes Todd Goldstein, who was rested last minute last week, and Jade Gresham. Out going Jai Menzie and Nate Caddy. This will be Dyson Hebble's 250th AFL game and Jade Gresham's 150th AFL game. So good luck and congratulations to both of those guys. Looking at this match, looking at some of the numbers, some of the figures behind it, Geelong obviously sitting 7th on the ladder after spending the first 7 weeks on top. Essendon sitting 3rd on the ladder. Their stocks are rising every week. Bombers will be going into this 3-point faves, which is kind of surprising. It's at the MCG. They're certainly the better form team. I would expect them to go in a little bit better favourites, but maybe this next stat is the reason they're not. Geelong have won the last 6 matches between these two teams, and 3 of them have been at the MCG. So Geelong definitely have the wood over the Bombers, certainly since 2019 or so. 2018 was the last time that the Bombers beat the Cats. Over the last 3, the Cats have been averaging 130 points against the Bombers as well, so they do score really well against the Bombers over the last couple of years. Looking at the form of these two teams, Geelong have only won 1 of their last 7 matches, which is really not good reading for a Geelong fan. They need to find a way to turn their season around. Might sound harsh, but maybe this is an opportunity for them. Obviously, Tom Hawkins out, Ollie Henry out, just gives them a chance to maybe have a different forward line, different look going forward, which might just be what they need. I don't know for sure, but we'll see what happens, how that plays out. I think they made a mistake last week by putting De Koning in the ruck. They've gone against that from what I can tell so far. They're probably going to put him back in the back line, but we'll see what they do with that. Who knows? But I would certainly hope he plays back in this one. Bombers, they returned to the winners list last week. They lost their last 2 before the bye in 2 tough games, Carlton and Gold Coast. But they returned last week. It wasn't the most outstanding victory of all time. They beat West Coast by 30 points at Marvel. But they got the job done. That's all they needed to do. And they move on to this one. Slight favourites and deserve to be sitting 3rd on the ladder, to be honest. Looking at this match, Bombers, they get the ball forward very well. They just kind of struggle to turn that into good chances and good shots at goal. I think that's probably their biggest issue. They get the ball forward as well as anyone. They control the ground really, really well. It's just that final bit of polish forward that they're kind of struggling with. So far this year, they've kind of relied a lot on Langford and sometimes Stringer brilliance to get them really going forward. Langford has had some really, pretty much all season has been really good. Stringer off and on, but I think they just need a couple more bits of polish forward just to get them really up there with maybe the better teams that people expect to do slightly better than the Bombers, I guess. They're very good out of the centre. They're not outstanding, but they're very good at it. Whereas stoppage clearances, they're not too great. Whereas Geelong are just struggle central throughout the middle of the ground. They don't win clearances ever. So that will be interesting to see how that goes in this one, I guess. Bombers, they bring a lot of tackle pressure. They bring a lot of pressure every week, and that's kind of what leads them to their field position dominance. They're really good at causing turnovers. However, Geelong are the better team at that because they're not good at clearances, and the only reason they had good success early year was the fact that they were good at causing turnovers and then turning that into like breakaway goals and whatnot. So I think that's probably where the game's going to be won. Essendon will probably be better out of the middle and out of the stoppage throughout most of the game. They'll probably control most of the field position. Geelong are going to be relying on themselves to at least bring enough pressure to force them into errors. They won't want to let the Bombers dominate uncontested football, which is what the Bombers kind of like to do. They average 19 extra uncontested possessions per game than their opposition. So Geelong will be wanting to bring pressure, causing turnovers, and trying to get them on the bounce back, I think, will be the way they win, to be honest. So that's all of Saturday football looked at. We'll jump onto Sunday. We've got 3 games happening. First up, it's the Saints v the Power. Marvel Stadium, Sunday afternoon. Big game for especially the Power. Their season dwindling away a little bit. Looking at the teams, obviously we've got extended benches at the moment, so these are not final teams. But coming in for St Kilda, we've got Wanganeen Malira, which is a big in for them, as well as Ryan Burns, Jimmy Webster, and Cooper Sharman. Out is Zane Cordy. Obviously, there'll be a couple more outs to come for that match. For the Port Adelaide Port Power, they have Travis Boak, Willie Rioli, Dylan Williams, Lockie Jones, and Dante Vicentini. There we go. We got it, guys. Coming in, as well as at the moment, Will Lawrence is named for his debut. So good luck to him. Out goes Radagawea, injured, Jace Burgoyne, injured, and Jed McEntee omitted. So that's the teams for this one at the moment. As I said, extended benches though. Saints are sitting 14th on the ladder. Port Adelaide are sitting 8th. Saints going in as 3-point faves, which if Port Adelaide weren't as bad as they were last week, they definitely would have been going into this one as favourites. Port Adelaide have won the last 5 games against St Kilda and 13 of the last 14 matches between these two teams. So Port Adelaide definitely have the absolute wood over St Kilda in recent years. Port Adelaide have also won their last 3 matchups at Marvel Stadium with St Kilda. So all of that points towards Port Adelaide. Obviously, they were atrocious last week, so that will be interesting. Saints' last 3 weeks haven't been terrible. Their season hasn't been great, but they have won a couple games over the last month, so it's not all bad. They were okay against the Lions 2 weeks ago before their bye. So I wouldn't write them off, certainly, but Their season certainly hasn't gone the way they would have been hoping. Port Adelaide, you can kind of say the same. They were looking like certainly top 4 chances, maybe even top 2 chance only like 6 weeks ago, 5 weeks ago. But they've really struggled. They've lost their last 3. They lost to Carlton at home. They lost to Brisbane at home. Got thrashed by Brisbane at home. Last week was by far their worst performance of the season when they went down by big margin to the Lions. So they need to turn that around. Pardon me. I don't know what's going on there. So, yeah, they need to turn their season around, and this is where they need to do it. They can't afford to be going and dropping this one, in my opinion, the Power. Saints really have struggled all year to score. Defensively, they're pretty good, averaging just 79 points against per game, but their ability to score is really, really holding them back. It is kind of their game style that they play, but at the same time, they just need to find a way to score more than they do. Port Adelaide, they attack well, they defend well. All their numbers suggest that they should be a really good team. Their main area that they get beaten at, is contested football. They really need to probably turn that around. That's their main area of concern on the ground. Because the rest of their game looks really good. Other than their goal kicking, they also kind of struggle in front of goal. But overall, they should be doing a lot better than they are. I don't know. It's going to be a weird game because I don't think either team are great at defensive pressure. It could well turn into just an uncontested football game that just peters into a very unexciting match. Who knows? It might be a thriller. We'll see. I think for the Saints, it's really important that they bring the pressure because they don't want Port Adelaide to be just dominating uncontested football. That's where Port Adelaide play their absolute best, is when they can just control uncontested football all day long. On to game number 8 of the round. We've got Richmond hosting Carlton Blues at the MCG on Sunday afternoon. For Richmond, once again, extended benches here, but for Richmond, Hopper comes in, Blight, Banks and Caleb Smith all in. Out goes Tom Lynch, who is injured again. Jacob Blight will be playing his debut if he gets the nod. Obviously extended bench. And Toby Nankervis, the captain for Richmond, will be playing his 150th match. For Carlton, Adam Sierra comes in, as does Marchbank, Jesse Motlop and Pittenay. Out goes Corey Durden, who is omitted. Obviously, there's a couple more outs to come. Also, milestone for Zach Williams. This will be his 150th AFL game. So Richmond sits 17th on the ladder, second bottom. Carlton sit second on the ladder, so exact opposite. Blues go into this as 42-point favourites. No surprise there. The Tigs did have a really good record against the Blues between 2014 and 2021, winning 11 in a row. But since then, it's been a lot more even over the last 5. Carlton have won 2. Last 4, sorry. Carlton have won 2. Richmond have won 1. And there's been a draw. They met in round 2 of this year. It was a close game. I think it was a 4 or 5 point margin in the end. I didn't take note of that, but it was really close. Tigs were leading at 3/4 time. Arguably, you could argue they were the better team on the day. In my opinion, they were probably unlucky not to win, but the Blues were just the better polished team, certainly in the last quarter, and that's what led them to the win. The last 4 weeks for the Tigs has been a little bit of an improvement. They certainly were struggling like 5-6 weeks ago, but their last 4 weeks has been better. So hopefully they show that sort of form again this week. The Blues are obviously one of the top form teams of the competition. They've won their last 4, and the way they've finished off the games in that period has been very, very good in fourth quarter football. Looking at the stats, the Blues are just better than Richmond at pretty much every category across the board. You look at it, they score more, they concede less. Granted, Carlton's defence is not great. They do concede more than most teams would like that are heading for a top 4 spot in the finals. But they can tidy that up in the second half of the year. They'll be really dangerous. Forward efficiency, a lot better for Carlton. Defensive efficiency, better again for Carlton, but maybe still needs tightening up as well. Inside 50 differential goes Carlton's way. Once again, they're not great at it, but I mean, that's not the be-all and end-all of a game. Disposal efficiency goes Carlton's way. Clearances, both centre clearances and stoppage clearances, Carlton's way. Contested footy, Carlton are the number 1 team in the competition. Richmond at number 18. Uncontested footy, Carlton solid at that as well. Richmond really poor. Tackle differential, this is the one category Richmond beat Carlton in. So we'll see how that plays out. And then turnovers, Carlton are the better team at that as well. So it's hard to make an argument for Richmond being in this game. Obviously, Carlton's form is a lot better. If I was to find a way for Richmond to win, I just don't know what it is at the moment. They would need to find their first couple of weeks form, like round 2 form, how they played them last time. But even that I don't think is good enough. Carlton are flying at the moment, and certainly going to be hard to beat in this one for the Tigers. One final game of the weekend. It's over in the West, and it's the West Coast Eagles hosting Hawthorn Sunday afternoon at Optus Stadium. Obviously, once again, like the previous couple games, this is extended bench, but in comes Tim Kelly, Andrew Gaff, Harry Edwards, and your boy Harley Reid. So big ins there for the Eagles. Tim Kelly, Harley Reid are massive. Out goes Jack Petroselli, and obviously there will be a couple more changes. You'd be almost certain that Tim Kelly, Harley Reid will definitely be playing. As for Gaff and Harry Edwards, we'll wait and see. For Hawthorn, Harry Morrison in, Josh Ward, Finn McGuinness, and Jay Sarong all coming in. Out goes Luke Bruce, who's been managed, which is an interesting one. And also managed when he's the sub every week. That's wild to me. But anyway, and off the bye as well. So crazy decision there. Anyway, it is what it is. They're playing Jack Funston though, who was probably their worst player last game, but we'll see what happens there. Obviously, three more players on the current list to drop out of the team for the weekend. Hawks go into this 14-point favourites. You wouldn't have thought that about 8 weeks ago. Hawks have won their last 2 against the Eagles. The Eagles won the 2 matchups before that one. Hawthorn did beat the Eagles by 116 points last year down in Launceston. This is the first time, though, since 2020 that they've met in WA. So, first home game for the Eagles for a while against the Hawks. The last 2 matches over there in the West have been split 1 apiece for the Eagles and 1 for the Hawks. Eagles' form at home this year has been really solid. Much better than their away form. Their last 2 maybe arguably have been their worst 2 performances at home this year. The loss to North Melbourne and the loss to St Kilda. But overall, their form's been pretty good over there. Obviously, a couple big ins for them here as well will put them in a better position. Hawthorn, they've won 7 of their last 9. They've turned their season right around. They're looking good. Are they finals contenders? I don't know. If they are, they will need to win this game. Neither team are great offensively. But it's not hurting Hawthorn. Offensively, they have been better over the last 2 months, but they've still got a bit of room to improve in that regard. Eagles defensively really, really struggle. The numbers for Hawthorn over the last 2 months suggest that they should be too good for the Eagles, but Eagles at home, Eagles with Harley Reid back, Tim Kelly back, arguably are going to be a lot better and stronger than they were last week or their last couple games. Hawthorn are the better team out of the middle, and that's probably where they win it. Neither team are great, but Hawthorn are definitely better, certainly over the last month or two. Hawthorn are also really, really good, ranked number 3 in the AFL at turnover to intercept differential, so it's going to be very important if Eagles want to win this to look after the ball, because Hawthorn will be pushing to create those opportunities and turn the ball over and turn them into scoring chances. That is all 9 matches of round 16. Sorry, before we leave, I've got something in my throat, but that's alright. We'll kick on before we leave. We'll have a look at my tips for this weekend. So far this year, we are 82 of 126, which is only a 65% success rate, but we did go 6 of 6 last week, so we're in form. Let's continue it here. First up, we got Brisbane beating Melbourne by 32 points. Then we got the Doggies beating the Kangaroos by 52. We got Sydney beating the Dockers by 14. Collingwood beating Gold Coast by 6. GWS beating the Crows by 6. The Bombers beating the Cats by 12 on Saturday night. Then Sunday football, we got Port Adelaide causing a slight upset over St Kilda by 10 points. Carlton dominating Richmond by 48 points. And finishing the round, Hawthorn by 14 points. As always, that is the end of another episode. But don't forget, before you leave, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Whether you're on Spotify, YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Comment, let me know how your team's going. Let me know if you think I'm wrong about a team this week. Don't forget to follow me on social medias. We got Insta, we got Twitter, we got Facebook. And we have TikTok, which I don't have listed down there, but we definitely have that one as well. So go check out all of that content. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one.